All right, so I have the colors that I'm going to use for my first one, and it is jade green, which is an absolutely perfect oxidized green color, but it's like a grayish kind of green to me. Burnt ochre, terracotta, chestnut, espresso, sepia, and 90% cool gray. Your best bet is to start off with the color that you want to be highlighted the most. In this case, since I'm not using white, I'm going to place my jade green. And remember that picture, right? You see that green? You see what I mean? Isn't that pretty good? So, you could also use Kelly green, but it's a little more grass green to me. But either way, when you're starting off with this, just place it kind of randomly. And for me, my light source is just gonna be straight on. I'm not gonna like do any sideways and all that stuff. It's just like gonna be straight down. I'm not gonna play around with that. It's because it can make things very complicated. And always hold your as far back as you can while still maintaining some control. Because unless you're practiced at it, the closer you hold it, the more you might have a tendency to push harder. It takes a lot of practice to hold it this close and not push really hard. It takes practice. So if it's hard for you, don't stress over it. It just takes practice. I used to be like that too. You just gotta practice. Just don't give up. It took me like 4 months before I stopped doing it. So I've got my little green up here, and I think I'm gonna kind of do another little random one over here. Just don't make it needs to be fluid. You know what I mean? Like, don't make it some stiff shape. Just kind of cover the paper nicely, but don't push real hard. Just kind of make it a little bit random. And I'm just going to put a couple little ones right here. And I might just actually put a little one up here. Maybe a little one down here. You just want to kind of keep it, you know, a little random. That's your biggest thing. It's just if it's too shaped, it's gonna look weird. So it won't look natural. Kind of like when you're doing a leaf. You know what I mean? It has to be a little bit random. So that was this one. Ta-da! And so next I will go for the burnt ochre. Ta-da. Hopefully you can still see that. Not quite. There we go. Okay, there it is. But now it's in my way. Okay, there we go. We'll get it figured out. All right. Now, this has to go. Sorry, people. It's just annoying me. Okay. Now, I'm not going to do the inside of the spoke just yet because that's kind of a different thing. But I'll do that last. And you'll see why, because I got to, figure my shadow out and stuff. Now, what you can do in magic is to take a reddish brown like this. Excuse me. I need to take a drink. Pardon me. The weather's nasty and it makes my throat all froggy. Take your, and just lightly bring it over that green. And look how amazing that looks. You don't want to push too hard because you don't want to like completely cover it up. But you want to just lightly go over it, but not too hard. You see how I'm kind of going in between a little. Now, if my angle was different, like if it was coming from the side, then where I placed the highlighted areas might be a little more structured. And here, I'm not even gonna bring that over that. Ugh. It's hard not to turn the page, y'all. Seriously, it's hard. You see how it's coming together a little bit? I think I will actually go up here a little, just a little though. And just kind of randomly going over it. I like this music, it's pretty. Anyway, okay, so next we have terracotta, which is one of my favorite colors in the Prisma set. And as a side note, this is a bit of a rabbit hole, but I do like Prisms. I love the way they lay down and all that, but my pet peeve is this. Look, do you see that? How it is there and then how it is here? And some of them are so bad that it goes all the way to the, almost to the tip. That is a quality control issue. Do you see how that it's not, the core wax is not centered properly? It's off center. So when you go to sharpen it, it's not going to sharpen evenly. You will not see this in like luminance pencils or Holbeins. You will not generally see that to that extent. It does not happen, and it's because one is made in Sweden and the other Japan, and then these are made in Mexico. They used to be made in America, and they were better then. They weren't as bad then. So that's just my pet peeve with them, and that's why they're on my list of favorite pencils, but they're not like number one because of that. Yeah, I'm not saying I hate them, guys. Don't roast me. It's just I don't care for the quality control. It's not what it should be. So it annoys me a lot. And you see how I'm trying to just kind of hold it. Because if you push too hard, you're not going to get as many layers in, and B, it's not going to look as nice. This is one I'll probably push all into all the spokes. And I'm using a circular motion generally, not always, but generally, because that's kind of the overall shape here. In fact, I think I'm just going to go all the way around with this. And I'm going to leave that one uncolored. It really, that sort of thing really just depends on your photo reference, if you have one, or just your personal perspective or take on it, you know? The nice thing about art like this, especially for folks like myself who really can't draw that well, these kinds of things are just whatever your imagination wants it to be, or as realistic as you want it to be. Now, I will most likely go back in with that green. Oh, here's the one I was telling you guys about. Look, this is what I mean, guys. Do you see how wonky that is? Look at that. Do you see that? That's what I mean. It drives me bonkers. You know, like I said, you just don't see that in the more the better crafted pencils, let's put it that way. But you know, China and Mexico don't have the same standards that Sweden and Germany and Japan have. Let's just be real here, you know? All right, so the next color we have is chestnut. Ta-da! Now this is I'm getting more into the shadow areas, but I love the chestnut over that green. So I'm probably gonna use this a lot in those green areas. Chestnut and jade green are fabulous together. When you're doing like a rusted metal look, they absolutely look fabulous. But I'm getting more in toward the shadow colors. You see how it's starting to come together? Now, to show some of the other colors that I have, I'll probably just do like a, turn it into like a speed color, because that way I'm not taking up too much of your time. Because I know everybody's time is valuable, you know? So I try to make my videos not excessively long for that reason. I like to, you know, respect people's time. And I'm not saying the people that make long videos don't, but that's my personal take. Now the ones that are on the top here, I probably won't go too heavy with it. Do you see how I'm just kind of making it a little random at times? Because as I said earlier, you know, metal's not going to oxidize exactly the same all over the piece of metal. It's going to change. And it's just going to, you know, it's going to oxidize differently in different areas. It's just the way it is. So we have espresso, and this is a magic color, guys, by the way. I call them magic colors. The one thing I do like about Prisma is some of the colors, like the gray, green light. There's a couple others. They're just, I call them magic colors, because eggshell's one of them. They're magic colors, because if you use them with the right colors, they just do amazing things. I just wish they weren't like this. Oh, okay, so this is getting into the shadow colors. So now you have to start being a little more deliberate about where you place your color, because I have it just kind of this way. So I'm going to probably do a few dark ones at the top, but not too many. Actually, you know what? I take that back. I'm going to do all of these that. But the key really is just to layer. Light layers. And the same is true for watercolor. Light layers. And since my white source is just straightforward, I think I'm going to go ahead and just do the rest of these like this with this shadow color. And of course my darkest shadow will be down here because of these other cogs. And I'm definitely going to be reintroducing that green because I've kind of covered it up. Sometimes that happens. Your highlights get covered up and you have to sort of reintroduce them a little bit. And if I get quiet, guys, it's just because I'm focusing. And I really appreciate, you know, all the comments and suggestions. I'm totally open to a lot of things. You know, I don't pretend to know it all 100%. I'm actually going to do this right here. Now, this is where I'm going to do something regarding this middle part besides this. Watch this. I'm going to put a little more pressure. I'm using medium pressure, okay? Oops, and I'm also going inside it, which I didn't want to do, but that's okay. I'm using medium pressure. You don't ever want to push hard with these pencils. You just don't, in my opinion, because they're not that strong. It says strong cores. I'm like, yeah, no, they're not. You want to talk about strong pencil? Holbein and Luminance are the two strongest pencils I know, that besides Faber-Castell, and you know they're obviously strong because of their being oil-based. The wax pencils are generally going to be softer. See what a difference this espresso makes? Okay, now, excuse me, guys. I have the weather. We're not all that far from Florida, like maybe a state away or two. We're not too far away, and I think we're getting a lot of the remnants of that hurricane. And y'all, it just does bad things to my throat. So, I hope you'll apologize. Pardon me. All right. So I'm going to reintroduce the jade green, which I consider also a magic color. I'm going to reintroduce some of that, just kind of randomly, maybe some over where I was a little bit, maybe in different areas. But I want to stick primarily to the lighter areas, although I may go into some of the darker areas, but I'm primarily going to go over the lighter areas. You see how it's coming together? And if you guys are totally like digging what I'm doing, please like, share, and subscribe. I'm pushing for 500 right now, which I'm only about 40 away. I'm not able to like do a join or monetize yet. I'm a long way off from that, but it would sure help me out, guys. And I welcome any and all feedback. I am totally open to, what you guys have to say. I love interacting with everybody. It really does sort of make my day. Okay, so moving on to some of the darkers again. We have sepia, which is also, it's like this grayish brown. It's great, like a grayish dark brown. It's really a good color. It's a nice magic color. So I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to outline that circle just a little bit, but I'm not coloring inside it. Now I'm going to go back into my darker areas. You know, the nice thing about doing this sort of thing is that it doesn't have to be so precise all the time. The only time you have to be a little precise is, as I said, when you're considering where your shadows and reflections are. And like the shape that they are gonna cast too. Otherwise, you can just kind of go wherever. And here I'm going to be careful because I don't want to put my darkest shadows in the wrong areas. And you can, when you get, the darker you get or the lighter you get, will really determine where you place your pencil. And also, one thing to consider is lighter and darker colors can, as I said before on my snail, it can either push things forward or push things back. Like it tricks your eye. So by just outlining this cog and leaving the center lighter, in fact, I'm even going to go back in and make it a little bit lighter with the burnt ochre. Watch what happens. You see how that center kind of jumped up a little bit at you? That's kind of what it happens. It's cool. So as my kitty isn't meowing to get in. He must be napping pretty hardcore if he's leaving me alone. And also you can use a blender if you really want to. Now I'm going to go back in with one of my lighter colors. I think I'm going to use the terracotta, because I need to define some highlights a little bit more. It's a little too random. That's the one thing though, you do have to be careful. It can be a little too random and not look right. So I got a little carried away with the random part of it. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of reintroduce some of those lighter colors to define my cog a little bit more. I got a little too random with it. And by reintroducing these, and I'm still pressing fairly lightly, even though I'm holding it close, I'm not pushing super hard. I'm pushing a little harder maybe than in the beginning, but not super hard. Just a little bit harder. Soft to medium. And you don't have to do it in the order that I'm showing you. I'm just kind of going from lightest to darkest. And you do have to be careful because you can make mud. This song is super weird. I use a program called Epidemic. If you are thinking about doing like YouTubing or whatever, I would highly recommend that for your background stuff. It makes it so easy. It's a once a year subscription thing, and no, I'm not being paid to promote them. I just really like the service. It helps me out a lot. Yeah, see, I'm reintroducing those colors just a little bit here, and it's sort of defining that shape. And I'm also going to go in here a little bit, very lightly though. All right, now you see how it's coming together? So now I'm going to take my 90% Cool Gray, which I've already used a little bit, and I'm going to do the darkest. And you see how I got that little piece on there? Don't do this, because what you're going to run the risk of doing, because it's such a soft wax pencil, you're going to risk smearing it on your page. So get a little makeup brush or something like that and just brush it away or blow it away like I just did. Otherwise it just can be a problem. It's happened to me. So now what I'm doing here is I'm going around the outer edge of this inside of this cog a little bit more than originally before, and I'm widening that a little bit. What I'm doing is do you see how the cog, the center part, is starting to look like it's popping off the page? little, you see that? And I'm not pushing very hard either. Soft to medium at best. And then I'm going to outline this center part. And I might put a little green on that middle part, we'll see. I'm kind of doing this on the fly in a sense, which is really, you know, the best way in my opinion. I mean, you can plan it out as far as your reflections and your shadows, but sometimes you know, I should have used, dummy me, should have used this. Hello. But that's okay. Now, do you see how by darkening around the lighter areas, it just kind of look like it's popping off the page now? And so what you want to do then is get one of your darker colors, but not necessarily your darkest color. I'm going to do my espresso. And I'm going to sort of lightly go around that area where the 90% gray stopped. Lightly blend that in with the rest of the cog. They call it softening the edges in watercolor. Do you see how that works? Ta-da! Now, I'm going to get my jade back in because I feel like my jade has gotten lost again. And that will happen. Don't freak out. That happens frequently. So I'm going to get my jade and I'm going to again reintroduce that a little bit, but not too hard. You kind of just want to, at this point you want to go very lightly, because otherwise you can end up with mud. And I'm not going like this. It looks like it, but I'm only coloring in one direction. Coloring in both directions, you got to be really careful because it can go wrong. And I'm also, again, doing the shape. My pencil's kind of following the shape of the cog a little bit. I'll watch. And as the colors begin to smush together, that's when the magic happens. And I'm going to do a little bit right here. Just a little. Now, I popped it back down a little bit, so what I'm going to do at this point to bring that back up is get my burnt ochre and go back in, but only on the parts that I did not use the green. And that will bring it back up. And if you want to bring it up even more, you could get like, you could use white, but I would be careful here. But I would be very careful with the white. Like, less is more here with the white. I'm using that just to kind of blend and make it pop back up. I think I'm going to do that here too. Ta-da! Just a little. Okay. Wasn't planning on doing that, but it worked. But you kind of get the idea, and as you push these colors together, they will gradually take shape. And I'm pushing a little bit more at this point because I want the colors to start smushing together. Now that I've kind of got my original foundation down, Now it's the time to start pushing them together. And if you know, again, if you lose your highlight, just bring it back, reintroduce it. And don't be afraid, they're just lines. As Monya Gates says, they're just lines. And I would highly recommend checking her out. She has a Patreon that is fabulous. We have a lot of fun. She streams every Thursday at like 3, I believe. And her Patreon is not expensive at all. Like, it's just, what she charges is insanely low. You get free pages all the time. Like, she does a bunch of free pages. She's a sweetheart. She lives in South Africa. And she is just the coolest lady. And like the way she says umber, she says it, but umber. I'm not making fun of her. I love her. We all adore Monya. So I'm just gonna give her a shout out because she was doing a steampunk picture, which I don't have her image, but please go check her out. She is fabulous. She's the best. So I'm gonna go back in with my umber here. And if you find that doesn't pop, you can also reintroduce the darkers. The thing is, dark colors will tend to push things forward. Like if you have a dark color behind it, it's going to push that item forward. Light colors tend to hit your eye first. For example, if you're looking at this cog, where does your eye naturally go? It's going to go to the brighter areas, correct? So that's same here. Your brighter areas are naturally going to attract your attention. So, and the darker areas are naturally going to sink into the back. So that's just, I don't know if you would call it color theory exactly. I'm not sure what you would call it. But I'm not, like, I don't have an art degree, guys. I have fun, and I love making art and stuff like that. But I'm definitely not an art teacher. Monya is an art teacher. She has an actual BA in some kind of art. I forget what type, but she has an actual bachelor's, guys. Like, she is a certified teacher and has in fact taught art. It's really phenomenal what she does. But you see how this is all starting to smush? I'm not really going over this center area right in here too much because I kind of don't want it to disappear on me. Oh, I don't know how I feel about that music, that song that's playing right now. It's a new list. I'm not sure how I feel about that. All right, I've got my 90% cool gray. And I'm just going to reintroduce, and I'm using the lightest of pressure because I want to blend that dark out into the cog a little bit without laying down too much pigment. I swear, words really do fail me sometimes. It's getting old, guys. I don't know. And I'm going to reintroduce it into some of these darker areas toward the outside just a little bit. Just a little bit. You don't want to do it. And I'm bringing it in just a little bit, but not too much. Because the more structured it looks, the less real it's going to look. So you just want to kind of just go wherever, but you know, still got to keep in mind you know, the things that I have mentioned earlier, where it will end up looking weird. You know, and then you'll be mad, you know. I think I'm just gonna bring this in right here, kind of like that. Now, that's a little bright, so what you can do is I'm going to take my green. I'm actually going to do something off script here. As they say, I'm going to bring in something. It's not on the list, but it is in one of the other pencil combinations. And this is my Kelly green, which is 1096. Let's see if I have a card out for that. Hold on a second. Nope, I don't. Okay. I don't have a card for this one up with me, but I'm going to go over some of these areas that are a little too reddish for me. And I'm going to very lightly. If you find that a color is too prominent, the way to subdue it is with a complementary color. And what is the complementary color of red? That would be green. And so I want to push back that, not push back, I want to subdue some of that red. So I'm going to introduce some of this other green. You see how it's kind of subduing it just a little bit? And I'm going to go into some of these other areas where I don't have any green. And I'm going to introduce this. I'm going to add this to that mix, that list. I'm good because I like it. Wow. That was unplanned. And I'm going to introduce it to here too. You see how that subdued that? And it's kind of blending it in. Oh my gosh. But you guys get the idea, right? I mean, that's by no means finished. I could tinker with that for a while, but you know, that's the basic idea. So what I'm going to do, guys, besides add that one last pencil to this list, I'm going to go through it and do this, and I'll try to do a couple of more cogs with each of the swatches that I have. I'll try to do a cog to represent it on this page. And hopefully, oh wait, hold on. I gotta show you guys one more thing. Wait, before I'm gonna push this one to the side for a minute. I wanna show you guys the silver real quick before I go into like speed mode, as they say. That is not quite done, but I'm going to pull out my silver mix. And I'll show you what I mean by whether you add a blue or a gray or a warm gray or a cool gray, slate gray. It can completely change how that silver looks. It absolutely is a game changer. That is your absolute key right there. And if you want to do a gray mix that doesn't turn to like silver, don't add white, because white will just add like a lighter gray. Do not add white. White is what makes silver silver. It's the white that when you smush the white into everything, that's how you get your silver. So that's just a little side note, side tip. If you don't want to accidentally make silver, don't add white. So let's go for okay. Okay, so one last thing before I go into speed mode is this. I'm going to show you this silver. And I'll show you what I mean about how it can change. And instead of, let's see, I'll show you on this one. Okay, so first of all, I know it's white paper, but you really do want to start with your lightest. So I got to decide which I'm gonna do. I think I'll make it a quicker, smaller one since it's a little faster. I'll just kind of go up here. This will be a little easier. And I'm gonna do some little highlighted areas. And you want to make sure you get into the little spokes and whatnot. And especially around here. Okay, now I'm going to go in with my 50% cool gray. Always double check your pencils too. And I'm going to go in all over with this. And this is on the swatch list. And so is what I'm going to do to it. How I'm going to change it up. You'll see. I picked this one because I thought it'd be a little quicker than that one. That one's a hair more complicated. Now now see how this is under that cog? Like this cog is over that one. So when I go for my final like little thing with it, I'll probably end up doing this black because this will cast a shadow onto that. And this right here, this cog, is probably going to cast a shadow here also on the outside right here. So that's what I mean. You have to be careful about your lights and your shadows. It really can be a game changer when it comes to how things look. Sorry, I was searching for my words. And for now, this is just kind of an all-over kind of color anyway. Okay. Now, I'm going to go in with my, let's see, my second lightest color, or third lightest color, which is 70% warm gray. And let me grab this. Make sure I have the right one. Okay. And yes, I'm mixing the warm and the cool. You can do that. You just have to be, you know, smart about it. And so I have my highlighted areas and I'm just going to go in. And right now it just doesn't look like much of anything, but I'm going around. Do you see where she drew those little lines around that cog? That's where I'm going to place my shadow line. Just beyond that. And I'm not pushing hard at all. It's like soft, but maybe a hair into the medium. I'm also going to go into here a little bit. Now, the other thing you want to do is create that shadow that this cog right here is going to cast onto this cog. But you don't want to go out too far. because it's not a very wide cog, so it's not going to cast a very big shadow. Like this will cast a bigger shadow than this would, because one is just a lot more solid and bigger. Now if this cog were like not so thin, it was a little thicker, it would cast more of a shadow. And you want to softly just kind of go out a little bit just to blend it in a little, so it's not like a stark. And then right along the wheel or the cog here, you want to just go with medium pressure, just like that. And I'm going back in here. I'm also going to go back in here. All right. I think I'm going to do a little bit this way. Just a little bit. And a little bit over here. Okay. Now I'm gonna have my where is it? Yeah, I think I'm gonna grab my black. And that's gonna, but you want to use the black very judiciously. Oh my God, I cannot speak today. Lord have mercy. All right. And I went along, I accidentally sort of went along in that cog, but that's okay. I'm doing it so lightly. I'm barely putting my pencil to the page. I mean, barely. You want this kind of strong, because the way this works, I mean, you want it blended, but the way this works is once you hit that white, that's where the real magic takes place. More so than any other kind of metal you might do. And I'm gonna really highlight that part. And just ever so slightly hitting the page. Okay, now what I'm going to do is reintroduce one of my lighter grays, which is like my 50% cool gray. And you see what an interesting contrast the warm and the cool gray make if you do it right, because it can get messy and go wrong if you mix it wrong. Like, you have to be careful and think about like what you're doing if you want it to look a certain way, but they can be mixed. I promise you, they can be mixed. So I'm going to go back in with this, and I'm going to blend this black into the rest of the picture. I'm kind of going all over a little bit, mostly. Make sure I'm getting into the little outer corner parts. And I think I'm also going to reintroduce some of these other shadows just a little bit. Now, if I was doing the rest of this picture, I would think about what kind of a shadow is this cog going to cast on, and on what. But I'm not worried about that right now. So, but that is something to definitely consider. For example, look, you see how my pencil casts a shadow? Now you can tell that my light source is coming from this way, okay? Because my shadow is here. Like my pencil's here and then my shadow's here. If my light source was directly overhead, like see how my shadow in my hand is going straight down? You can tell that my light source is coming from that way. So that's just something to consider. And I want to bring in some little shadow areas here where it's maybe oxidized a little differently. It's that randomness that you want. You want it, it's structured but random. You know, it's kind of like a bit of both. It's this combination of both. And I lost my shadow there. See, and if that happens, don't freak out. Just grab your pencil that you used it with and just reintroduce it. So I'm gonna make that really, really bold. And then I'm gonna reintroduce the white. Now, because of that little bit of black that I put on that, you see how that begins to pop up? You guys see that? Watch this. Now, I'm pushing with medium pressure here. Again, you never, never, never want to use hard pressure. You will break the pencil. I can almost guarantee it. Now, the key with this is to push and just go in one direction. You don't want to just be all over the place. Because even though you see, that's what I mean. You see what I mean? Strong break resistant core of my behind. Hold on a second, guys. Let me sharpen this. Okay. So let's resume here. See how I'm being very deliberate about my pencil strokes? Oops, see, and I just did what I told you guys not to do. Don't do that. Old habits do die hard sometimes. Okay, so I'm going to go along, follow the line. A little bit down here, but not too much. Now, if say it became one dimensional for you. So if that happens after smushing it, you see the difference. What you can do is grab one of your midtones and just reintroduce, but use a light pressure so that you can blend it into that squishy white that you put on. You don't want to push too hard because by now you've kind of burnished your paper. So if you use a light pressure, it will still smush without, damaging the paper like that. And if it's flat looking. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Flat looking. Grab your darker, one of your darker colors, grays or black. And just reintroduce it. And then go back in with your white. Oh, and one thing to consider when you're smushing with a white pencil like this, look at the tip and you'll see what I mean. I'll bring it up here. I'm going to show you guys. I don't know if my camera's going to pick up on it or not. It may be blurry, but my phone may not pick up on it. But it's, I don't know if you can tell, but there should be like, there's like pigment, gray pigment, black pigment on the tip of the pencil. I don't think the camera's picking up, but it's probably blurry. If it is, I'm sorry. But keep an eye out on the pigment that's on, if that has accumulated on the tip of your pencil. You might want to get like a tissue, or I don't know, my shirt. No, I'm just kidding. Grab a tissue or something like that and just gently wipe your pencil clean. Because sometimes if you're not careful, you can, that pigment can get smushed into areas where you don't want it to go. So just, wipe it off if you're going to go back in like I'm doing, and just wipe it off first. Now, I'm going to go back in over this, because it kind of disappeared on me. My shadows disappeared a little too much, and I'm not pushing as hard this time. And again, I'm being very deliberate about my pencil strokes. I'm not going back in the bottom area though. So far there's not too much pigment, so that's good. I'm still not happy with it. There we go. And if you are still further unhappy with it, you can just go in with your darkest color and just because by now your pencil is gone. So if you, as I said, if you push too hard, it's just you're gonna get wax blooms. And you really don't want those because they look weird. But lightly kind of go over it like that. And also another way to define areas is by bringing in, like say for example, I wanted this to stand out a little more. I'm gonna make the area, this right here, I want it to stand out a little more. So I'm gonna make the area right around it darker. And you see how it causes the lighter areas to sort of pop a little bit more? I'm pushing very lightly. Very, very lightly. Okay. Now, instead of going back in with my white, I'm going to use one of my lightest grays, which is, I believe, my 50% cool gray. Bring in the white, and I'm checking my tip, and there is some pigment, so I'm going to wipe that off. So I have a clean pencil tip. I'm going to just gently blend those seams together. And there you have it. That is kind of how you do it. Now, if I wanted to make it very bluish, I would add this slate gray. And it would make it a lot more bluish. But still silver. So, I'm going to do the rest of these in the little swatch here. And I will catch you guys later.